It's a big surprise. Nobody thought the ocean was this deep. So all of a sudden we've got scientists saying, why is that?
What happens when life is forced to evolve in a place with zero light, freezing cold, and enough pressure to turn bone into powder? The answer is hidden at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, a 36,000-foot deep canyon that remains the least explored place on Earth. Most people think the deep ocean is empty, but this key detail can shock those who think we have seen it all.
There's a whole lot of questions you get when you find this one spectacular reading.
From giant single-celled blobs to fish that look like ghosts, the trench is a bustling city of the strange. Here is the deal on what is actually happening in the deepest darkness. Secrets of the deep trench. At the end of the 19th century, when big areas of the oceans were still blank spots on the map, a British ship named the Challenger stopped in the western Pacific. The crew lowered a heavy rope with a lead weight on the end to see how deep the water was. They expected it to hit bottom after a few miles, but the rope just kept going. It sank past 3 miles, then 4, and finally hit bottom at nearly 5 miles. This was the first time humans realized the ocean floor was not flat. It was the discovery of the Mariana Trench, a giant underwater canyon that stretches for 1,500 miles. Things get even crazier when looking at the actual scale of this place. If you took Mount Everest and dropped it into the deepest part of the trench, the peak would still be 7,000 feet underwater. The pressure at the bottom is over 8 tons per square inch. That is like having an elephant stand on your thumb. For a long time, people thought nothing could live in such a place. It seemed too cold and too heavy for cells to work. But as technology got better, the mystery grew. The Mariana Trench is shaped like a crescent moon and sits near the island of Guam. It is not just a simple hole. It is a complex system of cliffs and plains that make up a whole world. It's been missing for years from our maps. But this key detail can shock even the best researchers. The bottom is covered in a thick layer of grayish-yellow ooze made of crushed shells and tiny skeletons that have been falling from the surface for millions of years. It is a slow-motion rain of leftovers that feeds the bottom. But the real story is about the life that calls this abyss home. In the last few years, cameras have found fish swimming at depths where their bodies should be turned into mush. These fish are pale and have no scales, and their bones are made of soft cartilage instead of hard calcium. They have adapted to the weight of the water in ways that seem like science fiction. What most people don't realize is that this ecosystem might be older than the continents themselves. The water down there is just above freezing, around 34 to 39 degrees Fahrenheit. There is no sunlight at all, which means no plants can grow. Everything that lives there has to be a scavenger or a hunter. Some of the most common animals are giant amphipods, which look like big white shrimp. Some of these can grow to be a foot long, which is massive for a creature that usually stays tiny. They have special proteins in their bodies that keep their cell membranes from collapsing under the weight of the water. Without these proteins, they would stop functioning instantly. This shows that life is much tougher than we used to think. It finds a way to survive in the most hostile places imaginable. Exploring this area is harder than going to the moon. Only a few people have ever been to the bottom of the Challenger Deep, which is the deepest point of the trench. The first trip was in 1960 by 2 men in a vessel called the Trieste. They spent only 20 minutes at the bottom because the pressure cracked one of their windows. It took another 50 years before anyone went back. This gap in exploration means we know more about the surface of Mars than we do about our own ocean floor. Every time a new probe goes down, it finds something new. Recently, a snailfish was found at 27,000 feet. It is a small, pink fish that looks delicate, but it is actually one of the toughest predators on the planet. So, here's the deal on how this all stays together. The trench is part of a massive network of cracks in the Earth. It is where the Pacific Plate is being pushed under the Philippine Plate. This process is slow, moving only a few inches every year, but it creates massive power. As the plate sinks, it drags water and rock into the hot mantle of the Earth. This causes volcanoes to form and creates the deep trenches we see today. It is a constant cycle of the Earth recycling itself. The Mariana Trench is basically the ultimate recycling bin for the planet. This deep scar in the earth is the perfect place for secrets to stay hidden for eons. Birth of the abyss. Basically, the earth is not a solid ball of rock. It is made of giant plates that float on a hot, liquid center. These plates are always moving, and when they crash, big things happen. In the western Pacific, the heavy ocean floor is losing a fight with the lighter crust near the islands. The ocean floor is being forced down into the hot interior of the planet. This is called subduction, and it is the most powerful force in geology. The Mariana Trench exists because the Pacific plate is old and cold, making it very heavy. When it hits the Philippine plate, it bends and dives deep into the earth. This bend creates a V-shaped canyon that is deeper than anything else on the planet. As the crust sinks, it creates a lot of friction. This friction generates heat and pressure that can trigger massive earthquakes. The Mariana Trench is a very active area, though we don't feel it much on the surface because the water is so deep. This process also creates the Mariana Islands. As the plate sinks and melts, the hot rock rises back up to the surface and creates a chain of volcanoes. It is a violent and beautiful cycle. For starters, the age of the rock at the bottom of the trench is about 180 million years old. That is some of the oldest ocean floor on the planet. Most of the ocean floor is much younger because it gets recycled so often. The subduction zone acts like a giant conveyor belt. It pulls carbon and other minerals from the ocean floor and buries them deep inside the earth. This is a key part of how the planet regulates its temperature over millions of years. Without trenches like this, the Earth might end up like Venus, with a runaway greenhouse effect. The Mariana Trench is essentially a giant air conditioner for the planet. It keeps things in balance by moving material from the surface to the deep interior. This geologic work is happening every second of every day, even though we can't see it. Scientists use sound waves to map the shape of the trench. They send a ping from a ship and wait for it to bounce off the bottom. By measuring how long it takes for the sound to come back, they can build a map of the hills and valleys. They have found that the trench is not just one long hole. It has many different sections with different depths. The Challenger Deep is just the most famous part. There are other deep spots like the Serena Deep that are almost as impressive. Each of these spots has its own unique environment. Hands down, the geology of the trench is what makes the life there possible. The shifting plates create vents that release chemicals into the water. In some parts of the ocean, these hydrothermal vents act like underwater chimneys, spewing hot, mineral-rich water. Even though the trench is mostly cold, these vents can create small pockets of warmth and food. Bacteria eat the chemicals, and bigger animals eat the bacteria. It is a whole food chain that doesn't need any sunlight at all. It is a world powered by the heat of the Earth itself. The deep movement of these plates ensures that the trench will exist for millions of years to come. Weight of the world. The biggest obstacle to exploring the deep is the sheer weight of the water. Imagine standing on the surface of the Earth. The air around you is pushing on your body with about 15 pounds for every square inch. You don't feel it because your body is used to it. Now, dive down into the Mariana Trench. For every 33 feet you go down, the pressure increases by another 15 pounds. By the time you reach the bottom, the pressure is over 16,000 pounds per square inch. That is like having the weight of an entire jumbo jet pressing down on every single part of your body. Most materials we use to build things would fail instantly. Wood would be crushed into a tiny block. Air-filled balls would pop. Even thick steel can bend and warp under this kind of stress. To go down there, humans have to build special spheres made of thick titanium or high-strength steel. These spheres are small because a smaller shape is stronger. They don't have windows like a normal boat. Instead, they have tiny portholes made of thick acrylic or use cameras to see the outside. If the hull were to fail even a little bit, the water would rush in with the force of an explosion. It would be over in a fraction of a second. This pressure changes how chemistry works. Under this much weight, the molecules in water are packed more tightly together. It also affects how proteins and enzymes work inside living cells. In normal animals, high pressure would stop the heart and brain from working. But the creatures of the Mariana Trench have developed piezolite molecules. These act like little braces that hold their proteins in the right shape so they don't get crushed. It is a biological miracle that allows them to move and breathe in a place that should turn them into a pancake. It is not just the animals that change. The water itself acts differently. At the bottom of the trench, the water is slightly more dense than it is at the surface. It is also very still. There are no big waves or fast currents down there. It is a silent, heavy world where everything moves slowly. This stillness means that any food that falls from above stays there for a long time. It is a cold storage locker for the ocean. Scavengers like the rat-tail fish or the cusk eel move through the darkness, using their sense of smell to find bits of dead whales or fish that have drifted down. Everyone's obsessed with the idea of sea monsters. But the real monster is the pressure itself. It is the gatekeeper that keeps us out. Every mission to the trench is a battle against physics. We have to design robots that can handle the squeeze and batteries that don't leak. Some of the best deep-sea robots are actually filled with oil instead of air. Since oil doesn't compress as easily as air, the robot can be lighter and thinner while still surviving the trip. This kind of smart engineering is the only way we can peek into the deepest darkness. The weight of the ocean creates a barrier that only the most specialized life can cross. Animals of the void. In the upper layers of the ocean, light is everywhere. But as you go deeper, the colors start to disappear. First, the red light is absorbed, then the yellow, and finally the green. By the time you get to about 3,000 feet, only a faint blue light remains. Beyond that, it is total blackness. This is the midnight zone. In this darkness, eyes become either massive to catch any spark of light, or they disappear completely because they aren't needed. Many creatures here create their own light through a process called bioluminescence. They have special organs that glow, using a chemical reaction. Some fish use this light as a fishing lure. The anglerfish has a glowing bulb on a stalk that it hangs in front of its mouth. Tiny fish see the light and think it's food, but they end up becoming the meal instead. Others use light to hide. By glowing on their bellies, they match the faint light coming from above, making it hard for predators below to see their silhouette. It is a world of tricks and shadows. I'm not going to lie, it looks like something from another planet. There are jellyfish that look like glowing UFOs and squid that can shoot out clouds of glowing ink to confuse their enemies. As we go even deeper into the trench, the animals get even weirder. There is the Mariana Snailfish, which holds the record for the deepest fish ever seen. It doesn't have scales and its skin is almost transparent. You can see its internal organs through its body. It has evolved to be soft and flexible so the pressure doesn't break it. It lives in groups and eats tiny crustaceans. It is a reminder that even in the most extreme places, life doesn't just survive, it thrives. These fish are the kings of the abyss, and they have no natural predators down there. There are also giant single-celled organisms called Xenophyophores. These look like sponges or big leaves, but they are actually just one giant cell that can be 4 inches wide. They soak up minerals and food from the water and play a big role in the ecosystem. They are very fragile, and if you brought them to the surface, they would fall apart instantly. This is the problem with studying deep-sea life. Most of these creatures are so perfectly adapted to the pressure that they cannot survive without it. Taking them out of the trench is like taking a human into outer space without a suit. One of the most interesting things about trench life is how long it lives. Because the water is so cold and food is scarce, many animals have a very slow metabolism. They grow slowly and can live for a very long time. Some deep-sea sharks and fish might live for over 100 years. This slow pace of life is a survival strategy. If you don't use much energy, you don't need to eat as often. It is a patient world where a single meal might have to last for weeks or months. The silence of the void is filled with creatures that have mastered the art of living on almost nothing. The ultimate abyss. The very bottom of the trench is called the Hadal Zone, named after Hades, the Greek god of the underworld. This area starts at about 20,000 feet and goes all the way to the bottom. It is a series of long, narrow trenches that make up less than 1% of the ocean floor, but they are the most extreme environments on the planet. Most of the creatures that live here are found nowhere else. They are isolated by the deep canyons, almost like islands in the sky. This isolation means that life in each trench can evolve in its own unique way. The floor of the Hadal Zone is not just rock. It is a landscape of mountains, plains, and muddy basins. There are places where liquid carbon dioxide bubbles up from the ground, and other spots where the water is full of sulfur. It is a chemical soup that would be toxic to us, but is a buffet for certain bacteria. These bacteria form the base of the food chain in the deepest spots. They don't need the sun because they use a process called chemosynthesis. They turn the chemicals from the Earth's crust into energy. This proves that life doesn't always need a star to survive. Recently, scientists found plastic at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Even in the deepest, most remote part of the planet, human footprints are showing up. They found a plastic bag and candy wrappers in the Challenger Deep. It is a sad reminder that our actions on the surface affect the entire planet. Tiny pieces of plastic called microplastics are being eaten by the amphipods and other scavengers. These plastics then move up the food chain. It shows that the trench is not as disconnected from us as we thought. Everything is linked in one giant system. There is also a lot of marine snow in the Hadal Zone. This is a mix of dead plankton, fish scales, and poop that falls from the surface. It looks like white flakes drifting down through the water. This snow is the main source of carbon for the creatures at the bottom. It can take weeks for a single flake to fall from the surface to the bottom of the trench. By the time it gets there, most of the nutrients are gone, so the animals at the bottom have to be very good at finding every last bit of energy. It is a world of extreme recycling. The mystery of the Hadal Zone is far from solved. Every time a new robot goes down, it finds a new species or a new geologic feature. We have only explored a tiny fraction of the Mariana Trench. There could be giant squid, undiscovered fish, or even larger creatures hiding in the side canyons that we haven't seen yet. The trench is a place of infinite possibilities. It reminds us that no matter how much we think we know, the Earth still has the power to surprise us. It is a dark, heavy, and beautiful frontier that we are only just beginning to understand. This final frontier of the ocean holds the keys to understanding how life might exist on other planets. Final deep secrets. So, what does the future hold for the Mariana Trench? Scientists are currently developing revolutionary types of glass and ceramic that can handle the crushing weight of the water even better than titanium. They want to build permanent research stations at the bottom of the ocean, effectively creating the first human-occupied outposts in a world that has been off-limits for millions of years. Imagine a base where robots and perhaps eventually humans can stay for years, watching the animals and recording the movements of the tectonic plates in real time. This would give us a look at how the deepest part of the world works, but it also raises a terrifying question about what we might wake up once we start shining lights into corners that have known only absolute darkness since the dawn of time. We might finally find out if there are truly giant creatures living in the darkest corners of the abyss, or if the legends of the megalodon and other prehistoric leviathans are more than just stories told to keep sailors awake at night. There is also the incredible possibility of finding new medicines that could change the course of human history. Many of the bacteria and animals in the trench have unique chemical defenses because they live in such a weird, high-pressure environment. They produce molecules that we have never seen before, and some of these could be used to fight cancer or create new antibiotics that are immune to modern superbugs. The trench is like a giant untapped pharmacy, but some wilder theories suggest that these biological compounds aren't just random mutations. There are researchers who whisper about a form of deep intelligence, a decentralized biological network where the entire ecosystem of the trench acts like a single, massive brain. If these organisms are communicating through chemical signals across the seafloor, we might not just be looking for medicine. We might be trying to harvest the memories of an ancient, aquatic consciousness that has been observing the planet's evolution from the safety of the Hadal Zone. Some researchers are looking at the Mariana Trench as a primary model for moons like Europa or Enceladus. These moons of Jupiter and Saturn have deep oceans trapped under miles of ice, and the conditions there are likely very similar to the Hadal Zone on Earth. If life can survive in the crushing, boiling vents of the Mariana Trench, it could definitely survive on those distant moons. By studying our own deep ocean, we are actually preparing to explore the stars, but some theorists take this a step further. They suggest that life didn't start in the shallow tide pools of the surface, but right here in the deep. Perhaps the Mariana Trench is a literal landing pad for panspermia, where life from other solar systems first took hold because it felt more like home than the bright, radiation-soaked surface. It is a strange thought that the deepest hole on Earth might actually be a biological mirror of the universe, containing extraterrestrial DNA that has been waiting for us to become technologically advanced enough to find it. The thing is, we have to be extremely careful. The deep ocean is a fragile place where time seems to move differently. Because things grow so slowly in the cold and dark, it can take centuries for the ecosystem to recover if it is damaged by even a minor intrusion. Deep-sea mining is the newest and most aggressive threat on the horizon. Companies want to scoop up minerals like manganese and cobalt from the ocean floor to use in the batteries that power our modern lives. This could destroy the habitat of the very creatures we are just beginning to learn about, but the risk might be even greater than just ecological collapse. There are theories that the trench acts as a pressure valve for the Earth's crust. If we begin large-scale excavation in the deepest parts of the world, we might inadvertently trigger seismic events or crustal leaks that haven't been seen in millions of years. We have to decide what is more important: the metals for our smartphones, or the survival of the oldest and most mysterious life forms on the planet. As the world turns its eyes back to the ocean, the Mariana Trench remains a symbol of absolute mystery. It is a place that challenges our technology and our imagination every single day. It is a reminder that we live on a planet that is mostly unexplored and full of wonders that defy our current understanding of biology. The darkness down there is not empty. It is a pressurized vault full of life, energy, and secrets that could rewrite every textbook we have ever written. We just have to be brave enough to keep looking without destroying the very thing we seek to understand. The journey into the deepest darkness is far from over, and the next big discovery is probably waiting just a few miles down, hidden behind a wall of water that is heavier than any mountain. The abyss is not just a hole in the ground. It is a living, breathing part of our world that deserves our deepest respect and perhaps a healthy amount of fear. The deep sea holds more secrets than the stars above us, and the Mariana Trench is the center of it all. It is possible that the most important discovery in human history is currently swimming 7 miles beneath our feet, completely unaware of our existence, or perhaps waiting for us to finally arrive. Let us know what you think in the comments. Do you think we should leave the trench alone? Or is the risk worth the reward of discovering what truly lies in the dark? If you enjoyed this journey into the darkness, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep-sea mysteries.